Good evening. Good evening. Happy Sunday. Welcome back to the UpSet podcast. We're so happy that you tuned in. And of course, when I say we, I'm talking about the crew, the best crew in all the land. Here they are.
I wanted to hear today. That's what I wanted to hear.
You wanted to hear the best crew in all the land? Yes. What's up, everybody? How's everyone doing this Sunday?
It's good.
Prices are up.
It's good. It's fall. Summer just was like, I'm out.
Yeah, it hit us. Yeah, that temperature fell real quick. One day I walked out in short sleeves, and the next day I tried that and got smacked in the face with a lot of wind and had to go right back in and get a jacket.
Yeah,
so fall is here. Fall is definitely here. But I like fall weather. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I love fall.
I don't like breaking leaves, but otherwise than that, it's what it is.
What were you saying, Charles? You said something about
you said what's up? And I said prices.
Now that's for sure, man. This inflation thing is no joke. I mean, they seem like concepts like you hear about until you're like living it and you're like, wait, so this is that inflation thing? Oh, wow. Well, shout out to our audience too. As you can see, we are live this evening. So we thank you for tuning in. We look forward to you chiming in. We hope everyone's having a happy Sunday out there. And thank you for watching. Don't forget to share. So what's been happening in our timelines? Anything sticking out in particular? I mean, it seems like there's so much going on. There's a lot to choose this week.
Well, in the sports world, on today, the Washington Commanders were commanded by the Philadelphia Eagles. So,
yeah, that's all over the timeline.
Yeah, we would be remiss if we did not shout that out. But you know, AEC covers both territories, so we support the winners and the losers. But that's awesome. That's awesome. Congratulations. Now, another thing I was watching, I saw quite a few people sharing it. We're all familiar with TD Jakes.
Yeah.
It looks like he has officially handed over the mantle to his daughter, Sarah. Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it was powerful. I didn't watch all of it, but just pretty much him telling her, you know, it's time. And, you know, that if she didn't have the anointing, he said, it's not about you being my daughter. It's not, he said, if you didn't have the oil, you know, if you didn't have the oil, you would not be, you know, but he's saying it's time for me to step aside and, you know, for her to kind of take the reins. And so
I must decrease so that you can increase.
I mean, it was a whole sermon. I mean, like, it was powerful. It was like one of those Lion King moments, you know, like yeah, but it was beautiful. It was like, wow. I mean, I haven't really seen that happen like that before, but it was cool to see.
Yeah, it's Rosh Hashanah. You know, I could remember growing up in a Jewish neighborhood. And this is a time of reflection, time of growth. So, you know, I'm still on a high coming back from the Holy Land experience.
Oh, yeah.
What high are you talking about?
Yeah, which one, right?
We'll discuss it in the green room. No, being out there on the Wailing Wall in the Jewish, you know, in the Jewish community. But either way, you know, some people in our neighborhood are saying that my next door neighbor is celebrating. So, you know, it's some good stuff, Rosh Hashanah, good stuff in the Hebrew culture.
I love it.
I don't know.
Yeah, talk about gas prices, Chuck. Go ahead.
No, not gas prices. About the Queen. I mean, Elizabeth dominated the news cycles, especially in the BBC. But you know, I can't say that, and it is tragic anytime a family loses a family member, especially as long as she has been around. But I can't let the discussion go by about it. Anybody I discuss it with, I have to remind them of the monarchy and the murderous monarchy that she reigned over. Now, you know, people would like to blame her, but you know, the British Empire did a lot of colonization during her reign. And, you know, just look up world history. You'll see all I'm saying is let's not forget there's a lot of pageantry, there's a lot of beauty, there's a lot of, but there, that monarchy, that governance was responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people. So just wanted to throw that downer in there to get us.
You got to balance it out, though, because people forget.
He wanted to throw that downer in there.
People do forget. They do forget. I know, that was in the news a lot. Even the whole funeral thing, so many people were like watching. I don't know why I'm surprised. I didn't realize how the funeral. I mean, I guess looking at the weddings, I should have known that the funerals would be just as ceremonial, but that was.
Have you seen the reports on their wealth? Do you know how much land they own? The royalty.
A lot.
We're not talking hundreds of thousands. We're not even talking millions. We're talking more than that of land worldwide that they own, that is theirs.
Yeah,
and I could go on and on.
That's
talk about welfare. But anyway.
Right.
Well, if we had time, I would talk about Brett Favre, but we're gonna keep moving forward.
Yeah, man.
We'll bring that back.
Yeah, there's a lot. Like I said, there's a lot in the news right now that's just keeps circulating. But yeah, we'll talk about that one eventually. But tonight we do have a topic that we are, I don't want to say we're excited about covering, but we like to kind of bring up topics that are affecting not just the nation, but even AEC specifically and those around us. And so we do have a special guest joining us. I'm going to bring him on at this time. This is John Alberty. John Alberty, Superintendent of Schools. Hi, John. Welcome to the UpSet.
Hey,
welcome, John.
We're happy to have you. As I was saying, we want to discuss something that is not just happening within what we see within AEC, but nationally, and that is the topic of teacher shortages.
Right.
And I mean, the numbers to me were staggering. I mean, I knew that there were people who were leaving their jobs. I mean, the Great Resignation, but I didn't realize how much education was being affected by this. I was looking at a study by the National Center for Education Statistics, said that in March of this year, 44% of public schools reported teaching vacancies. 44%. I mean, when you think about 44%, that's almost half of the schools are reporting teacher vacancies. And based on LinkedIn, which we know is a job site where people are matching, people are putting we know what it is, LinkedIn. The number of teachers who quit in June was almost 41% higher than a year earlier. So we're seeing these staggering numbers of teachers just saying, I'm out of here. Teaching, it's not for me. I don't want to say that they're saying teaching is not for me, but in this current structure, they're like, there has to be something better. I'm getting out of here. So, I guess we just want to start off this conversation by saying, and we'll start with you, John, what are some of the reasons that teachers are leaving from what you know or have observed?
Well, good question. And it's been a conversation, not just in my office, but when we go to union meetings, the North American Division is having it. And like you said, this is a nationwide issue. It's been in the news, in the paper. One of the things that we know that COVID was a game changer for education. A lot of teachers took that opportunity to retire instead of staying in and taking the risk of catching COVID. So we lost a lot of those teachers that were close to retirement age. Another reason we've lost a lot of teachers, as you know, the teaching field is not as respected as it should be. And so you have a lot of young people who are not even going into teaching anymore. So, people say, I want to be a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher. They're not a teacher on the list because they feel that it's a job that is respected or that pays what they want to make in order to live the life that they want to live. And then, some people are going to get upset with me saying this, but children have changed. My mom was a teacher, and at this point, she said, she probably would never go back to teaching anymore because children are different now than they were then. I know that are you hearing me okay? Am I coming through okay? Am I choppy?
You're good now. Yeah, you're
okay.
good.
Yeah. So kids are not as respectful to teachers as they used to be. So it's so many things that's causing us to lose teachers. And then within the Adventist system, we're not putting out as many teachers. And I mentioned that earlier. When we look at Washington Adventist University, their whole education department shut down. So that was one of the places where I know for Andy's conference, we would try to use as a feeder to get teachers into our system. They're not there anymore. So those are just some of the reasons that we've lost so many teachers or that it has changed so far.
Yeah, let's talk about something. Oh, sorry.
I know he was talking about WAU being a feeder for us for the system. Do we have any more feeders that we deal with? How maybe do you know the numbers of maybe graduating coming out of maybe Oakwood or Andrews or Southern? How does that look? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, well, one of the things that we pride ourselves in is that we go to Oakwood every year and interview all of their educators that are coming out. So that's one of the things that we've always done. Prior to me being superintendent, since I've been superintendent, we've always interviewed at Oakwood. So that's also one of our feeders. But even with Oakwood, they're still not putting out as many teachers as they used to. Right. Now we are going to probably have to looking at some other universities moving forward and try to find some candidates in some other universities. But definitely, Pat, Oakwood stays on our list. The conference puts me out there every year.
Sure.
Yeah, and speaking of Oakwood, I mean, one of the things you mentioned is that teaching, the field itself doesn't hold as much respect as it once did. I remember when I was at Oakwood, second to the medical students, education was like number 2. Like everybody was, the education night hall was like always popping. Everybody who was anything was studying education. And to me, it was always very revered, and these are the people that are going to be teaching the next generation. And so it's kind of sad to hear that same enthusiasm for education doesn't exist. So what happened? Like, what is it our fault? Have we disrespected the field of teaching that is no longer, as revered as it once was? Like, how did that respect level fall for teaching? What you guys think?
And there are a number of answers to that particular question. Let me go on the record and say, although that may be the perception, teaching is one of the most honorable and best professions out there. None of us would be in these seats without the teachers that we had. Our president, everyone who's someone had a good teacher to motivate them. So I just want to make sure that I say that so they know the respect that we have for teachers coming from Allegheny East Conference. But, I think, again, it comes down to a couple of things. Number one, people feel that anybody can teach because they went to school. So, parents will walk in a meeting in a heartbeat and tell the teacher how to do their job. And what other field do you do that? I don't go to my doctor and say, well, when you perform this surgery, I think you should do X, Y, and Z. But in the field of education, parents walk in because they were in school. They want to tell the teacher how to do his or her job. That's one of the issues. The fact that, we live in a society now where kids can go home and tell a parent something, and the parent will say, well, instead of following up with the teacher, they go in ready, prepared to get on the teacher before they even hear the whole story.
Right.
Am I making sense?
Yeah.
And so, I think it's just changed. Whereas when I was a child, if the teacher said I did something wrong, my dad and mom didn't ask the question. They just said, go back there and get ready. It's about to happen. That's right. It wasn't, I'm going to go to that school the next day and tell the teacher. No, if the teacher said it, it was law. Right. So I think just society has changed. And I'm not saying that parents should not be advocates for their children. They should always be advocates for their children. I'm an advocate for my child. Everyone here is. However, we need to make sure that before we go in ready to fight for our child, we hear the whole story and that all the adults and the kids are on the same page. So, please, Chuck.
Yeah, I was going to say, even pre-pandemic, there were some situations with educational systems. The pandemic amplified a lot of those shortcomings and weaknesses. I'm married to an educator, one of the best educators on earth, I might add.
I didn't hear you. What did you say?
I said one of the best educators on earth.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And before the pandemic, years before, we could even consider something like this, there are struggles that teachers have.
Yeah.
I think there's an economic aspect of that struggle. You've got poor schools who don't have the supplies and the support that rich schools have. All of those factors affect or can affect an educator and their dedication and their attitude towards teaching. I think educators should be in the category of first responders. They are that important because during the pandemic, whether they were locked out of their schools or not, they were still educating under extreme circumstances. Also, I think that if we look, I think there is a parallel between the educational, social, economic formula with our schools. In public school sector, private school sector, we've got schools like in this area, like the Hill School, that is funded and supported by very wealthy and affluent people. They get anything they want. All the equipment, all the personnel they want. Schools that are not so, and I have to, put Pine Forge Academy in this. Even through all of its struggles, Pine Forge Academy still excels and still does very well.
That's right.
And we have the constituency to thank for that. We have God to thank for that. But I think if we zoom out and see the problems that existed pre-pandemic and during the pandemic, which accelerated it, you'll find educators who say that we don't have enough supplies, we don't have enough support. I just heard a story this weekend. There's another dilemma that the state of New York, or is the city of New York, fired over 2,000 teachers because they would not show a proof of vaccination.
Right.
Yet some of those same teachers taught during the pandemic. So that's that other factor. And some people are angry and confused. Educators are saying, if the president of the United States says the pandemic is over, why am I being punished as an educator? So I think there are just a lot of mitigating factors. And I think that it's important for communities to get together and assess the condition of their schools. When I say community, not only in public, but with our churches. Our churches that sponsor schools need to have a summit with an assessment. This is my opinion. I'm not an educator, but I've been married to one and I play one on TV.
Go ahead.
We need to assess the condition of our schools.
Sure.
And we also need to have a solid relationship with our educators. I've always believed that the church, the home, and the school should work together.
That's right.
And sometimes teachers don't feel supported for a lot of reasons. And whose fault is that? It's ours. It's all of ours. It's the village's fault. So if education is important to us, let's just bring it down to the backyard. If it's important to us, then we should step up to the plate, provide the funding, provide the support. It doesn't matter whether you're in a wealthy district or a not so wealthy district. Because you could look at our schools and you can tell by just looking at some of our schools which ones are in the wealthy areas. Our schools. Let alone public schools and private schools. So it's a joint venture, and if teachers feel abandoned, they're not coming back.
Yeah. I was looking in the chat. Some of our viewers are weighing in, and Sean actually echoed something that you were saying, John, about a lot of teachers are leaving not because of the students. They enjoy teaching. It's the parents that are kind of causing, ruckus to the point where like, I just can't deal with these people. And honestly, as parents, we know how we can be. So, it's one thing when you're the aggressor. It's another thing when you think about a teacher who's just simply trying to do their job, having to deal with parents and attitudes and entitlement and things. We sometimes forget how our attitudes can impact people even when they come to work. So that is another thing.
Sometimes I question those parents who are giving their school or their educators problems. I would venture to say, because I have personally experienced it, that some of those complainers and some of those agitators are the very ones that don't come to teacher parent conferences.
To really know what's going on. Well, you're right.
John, you could leave anytime you want, man.
No, but it's funny. I would tell my teachers when I was a principal and they were concerned about kids. I said, parents don't send you. They don't keep good kid at home. They see the best they have. I would tell them that all the time. And I said sometimes parents come in frustrated, even though they know their kids. They don't want to say it. They know their kids. And I used to tell the teachers, I said, look, you have to deal with this child for a year. These parents have to deal with this child for a lifetime. And that's a true story. And I said, so we have to be sympathetic, but again, parents also on the other end, they have to come in,
be honest about
understanding as well. But Chuck, you said some things. First of all, your wife is an amazing teacher. I was just at something where I saw the violinists that she put together. They were awesome. So you're right in that, definitely. But a couple of things that I definitely want to. Couple of things. I feel like my wife's still happy.
Yeah.
Wi-Fi in and out. You know what I was thinking? Maybe, John, if you come back in again.
Yeah.
Then the four of us can kind of chit chat until you get back. Maybe your connection will be better.
Let's go ahead and talk about him.
No, but I see there's some comments in the chat. Some other reasons that we haven't even touched on.
He was hitting up the salary just now.
Yeah.
Let
me go back to that one. We didn't talk sometimes the salaries, because I saw that too. A lot are leaving for more profitable jobs. I mean, listen, just how people are being affected by this inflation thing. So the teacher salaries aren't cutting it for some families, and because they develop other skills, they can go and make more money with less stress. So they're opting
less stress.
Yeah.
Because everybody knows that teachers are overworked and underpaid.
Sure.
Right.
Absolutely.
They really are. They really are. And as was mentioned, there's a lack of funding. It seems like anytime there's cuts to be made, first thing they're going to cut is the educational system. It's really a shame because we rely on it so much.
Right. Even in New York, the amount of cuts that they made, they even cut, I think just in the city of New York, they cut nearly 1,000 non-teaching assistants.
Wow.
So now the teachers at our end don't have help from those NTAs.
You mean the support system, the support staff?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I like what Mike Jones said. I'm sorry if I passed you down there, but laws have changed. I mean, so many teachers, I remember my teacher, and I'm talking about high school, taking me to get my driver's license. You can't do that. You know what I mean? I'm talking about the closest, even though I came up in academies. So many things have changed, not just with that, but in what teachers can do or even say to the kids. It has changed. So Mike Jones in the chat, I agree with you. And there's a lot more laws. I'm just touching the surface.
I was thinking about the paddling. When teachers were able to paddle the kids, we could whip them into shape a little bit more.
Tasha, you weren't born around that time, so let me and Chuck deal with that. Maybe John.
I'm joking, but then there's another comment here that some teachers don't feel safe in the environments where they teach because the kids they have these laws protecting them. They rise up on the teachers. They threaten the teachers. They do everything short of. Some of them do put their hands on the teachers.
It's true.
Oh, I've seen it. I'm sorry. I worked in the inner city school system where we had a police officer on site, and the kids would say at the time, "You can't do anything to me," and they would just disrespectful, to some of the teachers, and it was because they knew that they could not, the teachers couldn't do anything to them. So teachers
and the conditions for educators have changed. There's so many other mitigating circumstances. Like, for instance, I saw an article in The Guardian that says that Black educators are silenced from teaching America's racist past.
Yeah.
It's another struggle.
Oh boy.
You're an educator, you're there to educate, but then you're restricted as to what you can educate. And then there was a bill in Oklahoma that fines teachers for contradicting religion. Fines them $10,000.
Wow.
With all of that going on, who wants to teach?
Right.
I mean, really. I mean, it's enough to do, your school, your class plans, but Latasha, you were an educator. Your plan, lesson plans, and all of that, and being with parents, and now you've got the powers that be. Now I'm talking about primarily public schools that are imposing all of these restrictions and fines on educators. I'd give up too.
But go ahead, John. Sorry.
No, go ahead, please. I'm sorry, Tasha.
I was just going to add, because this kind of goes along with what we were talking about.
This one right here.
The mass shootings. I mean, that's a real thing. I mean, a lot of the teachers who witnessed this happening in their schools could never have imagined it happening there. So it opens it up to other teachers say it could happen here too. I mean, it happened over there, it happened over here. So that's a real threat as well. Thanks, Brian, for bringing that up.
And I'm really bought that. That's one of the things we did this year. We brought in a police officer to do training for all of our teachers on how to deal with the mass shooting. And it's sad that that's the world that we live in, but we have to be prepared to get students out the building and mitigate casualties. So that is definitely a concern.
John, I wanted to ask you, what do you think we can do to promote the value of Christian education in our schools? And I know some of our educators say more specifically Adventist Christian education. I get the feeling that not enough of our constituents, especially those churches that are not attached to or sponsor a local school, they're just not on board. And it sometimes it doesn't occur to them that they're not on board. It's like, out of sight, out of mind. Those churches that have schools attached to them or part of a funding base are, thinking about it more often, or it's brought to them more often. What can we do to make Christian education in our conference, or perhaps even, nationwide, division-wide, about the value of Christian education, whether you are supporting a local school or not? What is it going to take for us to, say, hey, no, I don't have a kid, or my kids are gone, but I still value Christian education, and I want to send financial funding in. I want to be there to help with, maybe tutoring or, some other ways that I could help out with our local schools. What is it going to take for us? Because personally, I don't think we're woke yet on the value of Christian education right now.
Well, a couple of things. An Allegheny East Conference is going to take every pastor that has a pulpit, making sure that Adventist education is at the forefront. Even if it's once a month, there should not be a month that goes by where they don't bring up education. Because this is the thing, Chuck. The church does have a school. It's called Pine Forge Academy. So even if you're not attached to a K-8 school, Pine Forge Academy is the conference school. There should never be a month where you don't at least mention Pine Forge Academy.
That's right.
And so I think we need to make sure that we're arming our pastors and our workers with the right information so they can promote our schools. So There's studies out there, cognitive genesis being one of them, that have proven that our students do much better than other students with the North American Division curriculum that is passed down to our churches. We also had one of our own pastors who did his dissertation on our school, and his study as well showed that our students excel compared to other schools. And I also believe that this is the time now that we should be pushing our schools more than ever. We're living in the last days. I mean, we need to make sure. I was listening to a sermon Pastor Wright just yesterday. It was an old sermon he had preached, and he talked about the word. And he said the word is the one thing that never dies. He said when God comes back, he's coming back for the word. And that word's going to be in our heart. That's how he's going to hold us and take us back. My point is, putting our kids in Adventist school, put the word in their heart. We're making sure that they're going to be saved by making sure they're getting that word in their heart. We also know that the Holy Spirit is going to recall those memory verses and that word that they've been learning in school every day. There's so many reasons that we need to push our schools. Not only do our schools push our kids academically, but just in these last days, spiritually, what it does for our kids is it's a no-brainer. Yeah. It's where they need to be. So we have that information. We need to make sure we're disseminating it.
How about an accelerated PR program conference-wide? And I mean, consistent. This is, just old advertising, tricks. Ford can show you a commercial for F-150 enough times to make you feel like I need a Ford F-150. Mm-hmm. You're not a farmer, not a contractor. You know what I'm saying? But if you get that advertising enough and it hits in the right place, you're going to find yourself in a Ford showroom trying to buy a truck. All right. So if we were to constantly, in a fortified way, make Christian education in our schools specifically top priority every week. And I'm sure you've heard this before. I think you and I have discussed this before. If half of our constituents paid $2 a month,
that's not a lot.
All right, $2 a month, we could have upwards of $30,000 per month flooding into our school systems. $2. So, I'm just saying that, I'm the kind of person that believes that people will do what they want to do. Want to do something bad enough, or you're going to figure out a way to do it. So if we want to support our schools and our teachers and our principals, then we need to find a more fortified, effective way to get that support out there. I mean, it's $2. Two. That's Cash App. Boom. Zelle. Boom. No writing checks and putting stamps no, just write to a centralized place where money can be collected. And then I think, I'm not a real numbers guy, but I think that we could offer our educators more money. We could supply those smaller, less funded schools with better computers and better, even down to better bathrooms. I won't go there too much, but we've got some broken down bathrooms in some of our schools. So all I'm saying is that the answer really for our conference, I can't speak for public schools. I know each district and each state and town has their own problems, but for us, we are the answer.
Yeah.
We just have to believe it.
And put your money where your mouth is.
Now,
only $2 of it though. Just think.
Now, Anthony Daniels brought up something, and I know we've talked about this before. John, you weren't here, I think, when we had this discussion. You kind of mentioned that pastors need to kind of push it in the pulpit at least once a month. And it sounds like, sounds easy enough to me, but for some reason that doesn't happen. And it's like,
what happened to the old days, Latasha? When I was coming up in North Philly and we wanted to raise money, the pastor put a big old scale up on the wall. He said,
Right.
yeah, we're trying to get to $10,000. Let's see where we are now. Oh, we're at 2,500. We got to make that needle go up. And every week, folk would come in. They see the needle going up just a little more. Just a little more. I mean, we need to do things like that every week. I wouldn't even say once a month. I'd say every week. Yeah. Have an educational minute.
Mm-hmm. So I'll share what I did. When I moved to Virginia for my district, one of the first things I did on a Wednesday night was to bring the treasurer of our local school, Calvary Adventist School in Newport News. And although our churches aren't affiliated with the school directly, I reminded them, listen, we are a part of this community and this is our school. And so we had the treasurer share how they can partner, how they can collaborate, how they can sponsor students. And I focused on the fact that, listen, Christian education doesn't just cost, it pays. It pays. And so we got to support our school. And I took over prayer meeting. Some folks were mad at me, but I was like, listen, this is a priority. We got to support Christian education.
That's right.
Lots of pledges from my two small churches to help the Calvary School. And so I'm grateful that,
you're fired.
That's a good move.
Yeah.
You're fired now, GP. That's it. You're done.
Fired?
No.
What I'm saying is he shouldn't even have to say that. And thanks, GP, because I'm big on that. You don't have to belong to a constituent school to remember our children and to remember our youth.
That's right.
You don't have to do that. And I'm going to step out on a limb, Anthony, or what Anthony said, and it's true. It shouldn't be half of our pastors or some of our pastors. It should be all of our pastors.
Absolutely.
And from the Haitian to the Spanish to the African to the Korean churches, everybody should be given towards education. I remember growing up. I don't know. That's been maybe some 60 years ago. We used to have it on. We used to have the tithe envelope, and on the tithe envelope, we used to have education. I remember at my church used to have Oakwood on it. Breath of Life was on it as a kid. I can remember as a kid it was all on there. We need to get it back in front of the masses to see the importance of what it is. The Catholics say, you know what I'm going with John? The Catholics say, give me your children. John, are you with me? Give me your children. You want to finish that for me? It's not that I can't finish it. That's right. That's right. You give me your children, you'll be a Catholic for life. And I'm not putting down the Catholics. I'm not doing that. I'm saying education is very important. That's evangelism.
Yeah.
Evangelism.
Yeah. So there's some numbers in the chat. Tiffany's talking about the renovations at Pine Forge Academy, 3.3 million for the dorms and 10 million for the student center, STEM center. These are small numbers.
Very small numbers.
Very small numbers that Allegheny East is capable of fundraising.
Absolutely.
And it starts with what Chuck said. Everybody just chipping in just a little bit and we can do it.
Right. You know what kills me about
and there's
go ahead, Chuck. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and then there's some that can contribute a lot. But I also learned that, if you don't ask for it,
come on.
They're not. I mean, I learned a lesson years ago from one of the most admired youth directors that we had, Elder Davis. I had a Pathfinder Club in my church as a director, and we needed to raise money for the Pathfinder Club. Wasn't getting anything from the church proper, okay? But I needed to raise funds for these young Pathfinders to go on camping trips. A lot of them are inner city kids. Some of them.
Excuse me, Chuck. Can we pause there? You want to tell everybody that you were the Pathfinder director, or you don't want to say that on the air?
I was, yeah.
Okay,
I was
good. I just want
to. But here's the thing. Elder Davis came to our church and visited, and I went to him and said, Elder, I'm just having a hard time raising funds for these Pathfinders. A lot of these are inner city kids. They can't afford these uniforms. They can't afford tent and cooking. He said, well, and I said, I'm really not getting any traction with the church and the pastor at large. He said, who have money in this church. He said, okay. And I'm not going to get into details. He said, he said, just go ask them.
That's right.
All right. So I said, okay, it's that simple. Okay, Elder. So the following week, I went to someone who I thought had wealth, and I only needed $500. We're not talking a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So I said, sis, Pathfinder director trying to raise money for uniforms. I went through the whole spiel. Older retired lady. She said, well, baby, how much money do you need? I said, I need $500. So I'm thinking she's going to say, oh, well, I got $50. I can She said, see me next week.
Mm-hmm.
The following week, she gave me a check for $500.
Oh, man.
Okay. Now, but she made it clear. She said, just do me a favor, Brother Williams. Just do me a favor. Don't tell anybody where that money came from. Okay.
Right.
Use it for the kids. Oh. But I learned such a lesson there. Elder Davis says sometimes you just have to go to people.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
And say, we're trying to raise money. We need X amount of dollars. You'd be surprised. Some people will come off of that money, wherein before it never occurred to them.
Mm-hmm. Marcellus Robinson at Stewardship used to say this all the time. There's money in the pews. Mm-hmm. He would always say, I can hear him all the time. He would say, there's money in the pews. And it's true. Let me just applaud GP. I know I always play around and joke around, but GP, if half of us would jump out and do what you did, it'll make John's job a whole lot easier in navigating.
And regardless of the reaction.
Yeah.
And I have her pastor say, my church doesn't want to hear about that every week. Or you have to help bring them along. You can't just give up at the first scowl. You got to keep pushing it.
Got to keep going.
And, I have to give a shout out to John because me and the media team have had to, follow him at schools. We did videos and promos and things like that. It is a mammoth job.
It is.
Yeah.
John and Cynthia Poole and Gloria Perry are managing in an amazing way with the shortcomings that we have and a lot of successes. And I think we're in a position where we can brag about our school system.
Of course.
About the kids that come out of our school systems and all the programs. And I think some folk got to see a lot of our other schools and students and staff during the pandemic because they produce these, graduations and these special programs that you could see, on our YouTube channel. And I think we have a lot to celebrate, but I think we have to keep it before them, John. I think we have to keep every week, Yeah. Even to the point where you walk up to them like we used to do on the street, say, hey, how much you got on you?
Not that way, Chuck. No. That's bad. Not that way, Chuck.
But I do want us to bring it back around to the teachers, because one of the things that we talked about is some teachers are leaving because they don't feel support. And sometimes that is financial support. They don't feel like whether within our system, the church members care, the surrounding communities care. They're coming out of their own pockets for stuff. Nobody's extending their budgets, and they just they don't. So the reason we're even talking about raising money is because this lightens the burden of the teacher who wants to provide a great education for the child, or knows a child who needs to be in the class but can't afford it. This is why we're promoting giving, because this also helps the teacher do their job better when there's money that they don't have to necessarily worry about in order to provide a valuable education for the students.
What about John? What about human resources? Well, like retired educators or folk that may have been in education but can offer some help to our teachers in the school. Is that something that we also try to promote? Because I'm sure educators would love to have, we used to call them NTAs, but just some help there, even if it's just to give the teacher a break, to take a little break or whatever. Is there a drive for human resources as well?
So a couple of things. It's because of the shortage. We're finding it more difficult to even get retired teachers to come back and help in our schools. And that's part of, again, that teacher shortage. I have school now where we have two teachers that are about to go out on maternity leave around the same time. And we have been calling and looking for substitutes. And again, normally we will be able to find those retired teachers to come back and substitute. Having a hard time convincing people to come back. Again, people don't want to deal with COVID. I think that's one of the biggest issues. When you're talking about retired teachers, you're talking about individuals who are up in age and may be concerned because they're susceptible to COVID, having more of a risk to them than it would to our younger teachers. So bring those retired teachers back. It's not that HR is helping us with that; it's finding them. And then Latasha, when we talk about, you brought it back to the teacher shortage and feeling supported. A lot of our teachers spend a lot of their own money to purchase their resources. They go to websites like Teacher Pay Teacher. I mean, a lot of them, again, when, we pay them, but we don't pay them to the point to where they have extra to just go back and put back in the system. But because they're dedicated, because they care about kids, because Allegheny East Conference has some of the best teachers I've ever worked with, they make sacrifices using their own monies to make sure they have the resources. So I think, again, if we can help our teachers so they don't have to come out of pocket. There's a lot that Allegheny East Conference does. I don't want this podcast to end and people say, well, what is Allegheny East Conference doing to support?
Shout out to the administration. They've done a lot.
We do a lot to support. Now administration, I would tell you, they're very humble about it. We give X amount of dollars to Pine Forge Academy every year. When it comes to paying teachers' salaries, we pay a large sum of that for each teacher, making we cover the benefits, so on and so forth. And when schools can't cover salaries, we make sure our teachers get paid regardless. Other conferences don't do that. That's something the Allegheny East Conference does to make sure that our teachers know that they're appreciated. But again, even with all of that, it's still, with everything the conference is doing, additional support from the churches and the members, I said, Pastor Robinson always says, the money's in the pews. If you have it, help sponsor a child. I can tell you a story once about, I had a family come in, a wonderful family, and they said, hey, Mr. I may have to pull my child out of school, my kids out of school, multiple kids, because we just can't afford it. He said, we really don't want to. And I'm gonna tell you how good God is. That same day I get a call from a buddy of mine and say, hey, John, why don't we sponsor some kids at your school, full tuition? I said, literally, I just hung up. He said that we don't want them to know who did it. But that's the Holy Spirit. Even though they were the conduits, that was the Holy Spirit. But listen, and they funded those that tuition for those kids. And my point is, to make teachers and schools feel appreciated, we need to give back. We need to donate. And if it's not money, it can be time. Chuck asked, how do we get people to come in and help? Go to the school in your area. Make sure you do your Sterling, your background check, fill out the volunteer form, and then spend some days at the school helping the teachers in the classroom. They can't get a break. I mean, we have some schools where teachers I don't even have time to go to the bathroom because I have no one to cover my class. And so, again, there's a lot that we can do to support. There's a lot that we are doing, but we can always do more because we want to retain our teachers. And I'm not blind to the fact that we have seen teachers leave, even within our own system. I'm not going to avoid the elephant in the room where we've had schools where we've seen the mass exodus of teachers. There might be several reasons, but part of that too is we have to make sure that in those schools, they know they're supported. They have to know they're supported by my office, administration, the principals and the lead teachers, the board chairs, the pastor. Don't wait for people to leave to give them their flowers. As pastors, as board chairs, even as superintendents, we need to make sure that we're doing something for those teachers every year, whether it's a gift card, a plaque, something to say thank you. Because sometimes it's not about the money.
Absolutely.
Sometimes I just want someone to say, we recognize how hard you work, and we just want to say thank you.
Yeah. Right. I love that. And I wanted to kind of balance this because we talked about why teachers are leaving. Let's talk about the teachers who stay.
That's right.
Let's talk about those teachers who are showing up every day, even with all of those things that we mentioned, even with the lack of support, even with the funding, even with the scare of COVID or mass shootings. Those teachers that show up every day, I think we kind of have to balance the conversation, because if we want teaching to be appealing again, we have to highlight those who are doing it well, and why and this is not to put down anyone who has decided to leave the field of teaching.
Sure.
But we do have to, there's something to be said about those who, within the conditions that they have, are staying in the field and are dedicated to the field. So John, I guess I wanted to ask you, what are you seeing in the teachers? Let's just talk about AEC, that's giving them that staying power. What are those characteristics, and what are those things that are keeping them coming back?
Okay, is he stuck? He looked like he was thinking about the answer. Can I jump in real quick though? Or, even if I could jump in real quick. I've always looked at, and along the same lines, Latasha, of what you were saying. I look at teachers and ministers on the same level. I don't look at one greater than the other. I look at teachers as being assigned to the classroom, just as you are assigned to superintendent, and some of us are assigned to the office. I look at that as an assignment, not a promotion, not someone losing their promotion. I don't see that. We're all in the work together, and Sister White calls for us to have a reverence for ministers, the same way we ought to have reverence for the teachers. Should be in the same. I'm looking in the chat right now and I see Sister Norma Mann.
Yes.
And she's retired. But I look at someone like her who have changed the lives of hundreds of kids. Hundreds, literally hundreds. She's gonna get mad when I say this. We used to say she used to make toy soldiers, right? out of the kids. But I look at her name jump up and I say immediately, my kids were never able to be in her class, and I regret it that it came afterwards. There's so many great things at Allegheny East. We always complaining about a lot of stuff, when the truth is that we have some great teachers. I gotta give kudos to that. And here it is. That's what I wanted to say. It's a calling, just like ministry is a calling. I look at it as a calling. John, go ahead and answer Tasha. I'm sorry, I jumped in real quick.
And I missed part of the question, and I apologize for that. But you were asking about those teachers who stay in their commitment. Right. And it's funny that you would mention a Norma Mann and that she would be on here, because she's one of those teachers. Norma Mann, and I'm sure she's going to call me afterward. If you know Norma Mann, she was, and I say was because she's retired. She's still with us. Right. She was one of those teachers that I wish my kids could have had her. Because not only
my daughter did 1 year.
Okay. Don't brag.
Yeah. But not only was she a great teacher, like many of our teachers, she was committed to Adventist education. Right. And it is a calling, because our teachers, they can go other places. They can make more money. They can, go into different fields. But the majority of our teachers stay with us for the same reason that we have our pastors. They believe that it is a calling from God, which is why they're here. I remember when I was a principal, I used to tell people all the time, I'm here because this is where God put me. And sometimes, and hear me out when I say this, a lot of our constituents would treat our teachers like they're here because they can't go anywhere else.
Right.
You following me?
Yeah.
When our teachers can go anywhere they want, but we treat them like, you just work in our system because you couldn't cut it for the public system. No.
You're
right. They work in our system because this is where God has called them to be. Right. And it's a private school setting. So, they're working in where they feel is their vineyard. And so it goes back to showing that we appreciate them. But again, Latasha, to answer your question, when you talk to those teachers who are here, the ones who are putting the years, the ones who are committed, they do it because they believe God has truly called them to be in our classrooms. And everyone's not going to be a pastor. God uses us in different ways. And those teachers, believe it or not, they're spending more time, and this is no disrespect to my pastors on the line, you know, I appreciate all you do.
I know what you're gonna say.
They spend more time with those kids. Pastors might see once a week.
Yep.
Teachers are in front of them 7.5 hours a day.
That's right.
And the hope is that the pastors and the teachers are working hand in hand. So if you can get the kids, then the pastors got to help get the rest of the family. So, yeah.
John, I wanted to ask you, or at least suggest a element for going forward, roadmap in terms of addressing the issue of our shortages of teachers and the appreciation for our teachers and Christian education. I've always felt that at least once a year that we should have we have workers meeting for primarily the pastors, but I really believe that we should have one major event that brings all of the pastors together, all of the teachers together, and it be a focus on Christian education. It could be part of our annual workers meeting where the teachers, now way back when, because I've been working up here for a little while, and
10 years.
We used to have worker meetings that included the educators.
And I heard Camp Pitch used to be that way too. That
right.
Camp Pitch used to have the teachers up there too.
So, I'm wondering going forward if we can create better community with our pastors and our educators so that there's a real partnership in promoting Christian education and supporting our teachers. And with that, will entice others to come and be teachers in our school systems as a result of the partnership, the real deal partnership between the church, the home, and the school.
Wow.
But I think if we had a summit of some sort where we could pull together tools to make that happen, I think that would benefit us going forward. I'm not an educator, but I've watched, and as my wife's an educator, and she's brought home frustrations in the past. I'm wondering if that might be part of the solution.
I think, Chuck, you make a good point. Out of sight, out of mind is one of the things that we say. I believe if the pastors were able to see the teachers, spend time with the teachers in workers meeting, it would make a difference. And also, it will make the teachers feel that they are part of the same system as the pastors are, and not that they are separate from the rest of the workers, And I think that would send the message that we're all one workforce doing the same thing, which is to usher in the second coming of God, whether you're a teacher doing it in the schools or a pastor doing it in the churches. When you have an army, everybody has different roles in the army, but they're all fighting the same war. And what we're doing, we're fighting the same battle. And that's why, again, I think it's a great idea to bring us all together. So that's something we need to talk about. I know they, like you said, they used to bring the teachers in for workers meetings. So it's something that we can mention to, the powers that be.
Administrative, yeah.
Yeah, I like that idea. I also, I know we have to wrap up. There's a question in the chat we're going to get to from David, but I wanted to, I know Charles just mentioned one and we've mentioned others, but what are some ways, aside from money, because I think we talked about that, what are some ways aside from money that we as AEC constituents or people can show support for our teachers, or what can we do? Because immediately I was thinking about, everybody doesn't have the finances. We know that, praise God that woman had $500 to be able to write the check. We know that that's not everyone's financial situation, but they still have a heart for education and want to do something. I thought about something as simply as, thanking a teacher, smiling at a teacher, writing a teacher. I mean, something, so many things that could go far that cost nothing. So are there other things?
Check Cleopatra. You go on trip.
Take your pastor to work today. I like that. No, I like that.
It's good. It's
That's
good.
That's a good one, because remember, I think a couple of you, one of the things our church ministries team did one year was we would go to wherever our counterpart would go. Like, for instance, Miss Minnie McNeil was in charge of community service, and she had to do something for community service. So all the directors, we rented this little van, and we all went with Miss Minnie McNeil to see what it's like for her when she's doing her ministry. And I have to tell you, we did that with I think it was prior to you, Judy Dent. We went to a school and we saw. So we, as a church ministries team, were able to see what the other directors did, like what they do. We hear it, they report in the meeting, but there was nothing like seeing it in action. And so that's why I actually think that's a good idea. Maybe if we had something where the pastors went to school, I hate to say it like that, but something that we organize where they go on a little field trip to the school, maybe give them something to do, a week of prayer, a little devotional, something. I think once you see it, you can't get it out of your head. You know what I mean? It changes your whole.
That's right.
It's Latasha, walking through a school building. Let me tell you who's the most popular person in the school, and people don't realize this. It's the pastor. When a pastor comes into a school, to one of their constituent churches, those kids get so excited about seeing their pastor. Because the pastor goes from class to class, they know the kid's name, and the kids talk about it. So it's really important to bring the pastors in. But there was a question in the chat you said, and I wanted to make sure we answered, talking about giving free tuition. I wanted to make sure that we answered that.
Yes, that's the one from David. We talked about that pastor who.
But before you answer that, I think we owe some of. I don't know if we're betting people here, but checks in the mail, GP. I'm just saying, from the green room, checks in the mail.
So that question about the church, we know that was Pastor John Boston, Shiloh Church. They committed to just paying for tuition for all the students for this school year. I'm not sure how long it's planned to go. What do you think about that, John? Is that something we could see happening in one of our schools?
So Elder Fordham, I remember when I first became superintendent, one of his directives was wanting to see all the kids who went to Allegheny East Church attend their Allegheny East schools for free. That was one of the things he always said to me. And that was one of his initiatives. I had a conversation just recently, actually, when we were doing the taping recently with our president, Elder Palmer. He also believes in that agenda, or the fact that there needs to be some type of change in how things are financed so our kids can attend school for free. One of the things that we're discussing now, after October, I would like to see the executive committee of the conference put together a subcommittee to just look at how we can finance our schools to make it more affordable for those students who attend Allegheny East schools. I mean, the Bible says all thy children shall be taught of the Lord, period. It doesn't say your child should be taught of the Lord if they can afford to be taught of the Lord. One of the reasons I was not able to attend Pine Forge as a child was because my parents just could not afford it. It's not that I didn't want to go, they didn't want to send me, just couldn't afford it. And think about all those other students who want to attend our schools, but parents may not be able to afford it. They may not have the resources. So it is something, Latasha, I can tell you, after October, when we start with the new executive committee, I would like to make sure that that's on the agenda. It was something that Elder Fordham wanted. I know it's something that I've spoken about with our current president, and it will take time, but I do believe there should never be an excuse for kids not to be able to attend school, especially when it comes down to finances. So do I agree with what the brother did as far as making schools free, making that school free for all those individuals? Yeah. I think it's a wonderful idea. I'm sure that money still had to come from somewhere. And that's the part. We can't just say we're going to make schools free for all of our students. We still have to think about where's the money going to come from. And that's why putting that subcommittee together is going to be so important, so we can make sure we have a strategic plan on how we're going to get to that point. Because again, let's be clear. And the price has gone up. When I looked at the numbers, it's about $12,000, $13,000 to educate a child. And I'm sure that's gone up. we only charge our K through 8 parents between 5 to maybe 7,000. So we're already still picking up the churches are already still subsidizing a lot of that. We have to determine how can we get to the point to where we're subsidizing all of it for those parents who are paying their tithe and offering faithfully.
So John, sorry.
No, it's okay. I just saw a comment, but we can come back to it.
No, I just wanted to kind of bring it full circle as we drop down the landing gear here. Bringing it back to teachers and lack thereof and the current state of teachers. I saw a poll, a Gallup poll that was taken back in February of this year. And the poll was about the most burned out workers in the country. And the leading industry, K through 12, 44% burned out. And this is above college and universities, professional services, government, retail, healthcare, law, entertainment. K through 12 were the most burned out workers in the United States. So the question I have for you, if that is the case, or there is a small percentage of that in our school system, what is there in place for those teachers who are suffering from burnout within our own system?
That's a good question, Charles. So I can tell you what we have done this year. We've given teachers more days, I don't want to say off, but we've given them more teacher work days this year to sort of help with the burnout. It was something that we voted on the K-12 level. And so now every quarter teachers have teacher work days. That gives them ability to kind of gather their thoughts, get themselves together. It's not a mental health day because they're still working, but it gives them a break from the kids for that day. We also added some additional asynchronous days in the calendar to give teachers some additional time as well. But I still don't believe that it's enough from keeping our teachers from being burned out. Again, our teachers, a lot of them work from the moment they walk in that building to the moment they leave. All of our schools don't have specials. And what I mean by specials are PE teachers and music teachers to give the regular teachers a break. All of our schools don't have that. Some of our schools, the teacher is doing PE, music, and all of it. So they never get that break. We have to get more bodies in the buildings to give our teachers some additional breaks during the day. And again, that's a bigger issue. Some of our schools can afford it. Other schools can't afford it based on the way our schools are funded. But that's something we still have to do. And that's why I commend what Ms. Williams does, because I know she covers several of our schools in that Pennsylvania area, which allows our teachers to get a break. But we need to make sure all of our schools can do that as well.
Sure.
Well, John, all things considered, I think you guys are doing a good job. Just keep, with more support and more money, I mean, we'll be solidly on top of the game. So I want to thank you and the whole education department for the hard work that you're doing.
Thank you. And I want to make sure I don't, I'll be remiss if I don't mention Ms. Poole and Ms. Perry for my associate superintendents, and Ms. Penny Rogers for their help. I couldn't do this job without my team. And just commend all of the teachers that we have and administrators and lead teachers. Again, Allegheny East Conference is Allegheny East Conference because of the staff that God has blessed us with. And I'm just humbled to be a servant leader in this role, to be able to help out.
Absolutely. Before we go, we had a few, and I kind of threw out the question about what can we do to show support for teachers. Some of our viewers were putting some options in the chat, so just wanted to run through a couple of those before we close out. We already talked about Take the Pastor to Work Day. We're talking about featuring schools across the country and putting even more emphasis on our pastors to promote Christian education. A random luncheon. Maybe treat them to nice luncheon. And that's something that, you mentioned them being equivalent to first responders. I know a lot of first responders during the pandemic were treated to like random lunches brought to the various locations. Yes, Cleopatra said that, like you mentioned, some don't even get a bathroom break. Like they don't, they're literally going from the time they get in, no one to relieve them. So like you said, maybe a volunteer to come for an hour to do something with the children. Brian had a suggestion, and I think kind of married the two things we were talking about. Offer full scholarships for high school seniors to go into education.
Wow.
With a 7-year contract for service. So you're pouring into them in terms of giving them free education with the hope that they'll pour back into the system by becoming teachers. I guess similar to kind of how we do with pastors in the seminary and stuff.
Yep.
Very quickly, Mike Jones was saying he doesn't agree with completely free tuition for the parents, and I've heard other people say that as well. But maybe subsidize because there are other fees other than tuition that goes into education.
Right, that's what I wanted to add.
So parents will still have to be responsible for that. And then there's another one. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
This is what Michael said. I think I agree with Michael in the aspect of we have to look at people's means as opposed to how we divvy out those resources.
Right.
There's
Sometimes
those who might need almost free based on their income, but there may be those who can just afford it right out. So I agree, Michael. Mm-hmm. And I always believe that you have to have some skin in the game, and that skin in the game for those might be making sure that they're paying their tithe on time, whatever the case may be. So that'll be part of what we have to figure out.
Some kind of sliding scale.
Exactly.
Hurry up and get to normal man, please.
I know, right? One more before we get there. Blue State program, CS Fund pays a lot of our tuition for Adventist schools. So for some of the local churches looking into that, local schools looking into that funding. And last but not least, send them on a cruise. And see, for her to even suggest this, when she's retired and would not be able to participate, that says a lot. But yes, send them on a cruise.
I think, you know what? We were supposed to send them on a cruise. So Norma, when we finally get that cruise, even though you're retired, I'm saying this publicly.
Don't promise. Don't do it. Don't do it.
But you will be on that cruise with us.
Well, just for information for those that don't know, I mean, the education department and the administration did send our educators on a cruise.
Yes. Yes.
It was a very nice cruise because I got to go.
Oh.
That was before my time.
We did take them to Maggiano's this year, but it wasn't
that's a good meal. But no, this has been a great conversation. And John, we thank you for taking the time to talk to us. None of us envy your job and what you have to do. And there's a lot that you shoulder as a superintendent of schools. And we all want to do our part to at least lessen the load of our teachers. So we've shared a lot of options here today, whether it's assisting in the classroom, whether it's providing some financial support so they don't have to come out of their pockets, whether it's just an encouraging word or a smile. It's our part to uplift our teachers so that they understand that we appreciate their dedication to our children each and every day.
Sure, right.
John, may we suggest that our viewing audience and our listening audience can reach out to you if they have a special project or some special funds or any kind of special support that they can give you? Can they just reach out to you, through your email address there at the conference office, or how would you like them to contact you? Or potential teachers that may be out there listening.
Yeah, we forgot to throw that out there.
If they want to reach out, they can email me directly. Of course, I don't know. It's on the website, but so if you don't get it, as I said, it's J Alberty, ALBER. There it goes. Latasha just put it up. And then any potential teachers, you can always go onto the website and fill out the application as well. So, but even if you want to reach out to me prior to filling out the application, just give me an email and I'll call you right back or email you right back within 24 to 48 hours.
Perfect.
That's right. All right. So awesome. Thank you. I know this is not Teacher Appreciation Month, but You know, we do appreciate
every month.
our teachers every month, because every month they show up. So every month we
right.
got to say thank you for what you're doing. And we're hoping that those shortages will turn around and teaching will be raised to the level of respect that it once had. But until then, we press forward and we support them. Well, thank you all for tuning in this evening. We enjoyed reading the comments and hearing from all of you out there. UpSet podcast, you know, we'll be back next week. We have more things to talk about. There's more things that are upsetting this fruit basket of life. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you back here next Sunday, 6 p.m. As Rodney once said, if it's Sunday, it's the UpSet podcast.
Yep. I like that.
All right. Thanks again, John. We appreciate you. Good night,
Thanks,
everyone.
John.
Night.
Thank you. Peace.